So today I'm going to be going over two of my most recent builds. This is a ROTS Flex from Corbanth installed with the Eco Crystal Chamber chassis from the Saber Armory. This is, I believe, the OWK TPM by Corbanth. Looking at the box here, it's a pretty cool box. And it's installed with the, I guess you can call it an Eco Crystal Chamber chassis. If you hear any cat noises, that is just my cat being really strange today, so don't mind her. But anyways, this is the Eco Crystal Chamber chassis, basically, from Corbanth's website, I believe. I think all the chassis there are designed by Shadowfoil Props, while this one is designed by Goth3 Designs. But I'll be going over both of them in this video here. These two videos were actually, these two lightsabers were actually made for a customer by the name of Anthony, who was a customer of mine last year when I built a Qui Gon lightsaber. And I actually really love making the lightsabers for him because he tends to provide me with everything I need. So I don't need to go out and source any parts or materials. All I need to do is install what he sends me. And it just makes the whole process a lot more enjoyable and fun. So I guess we'll start with the first one that I started off building. That would be the Anakin Lightsaber. So let's go over it. As you can see, we have the Eco Crystal Chamber chassis, and the first thing that I will note is I did have to sand down this top part because the inner diameter of the Corbanth ROTS Flex is a little bit smaller than what the Eco Crystal Chamber chassis has for its diameter. And I think I came across this issue when I was making and installing the Knight AS3 from the Saber Armory, and trying to use the same chassis that I had for the Corbanth version. I think they're both exactly the same, made by the same people. It's got all the same functionality and details and how it all functions, so they both work interchangeably, the internals. But the only difference I could find was the difference in diameter. But it's been a while, so I don't quite remember. But anyways, he said that, my customer said that I can sand it down to make it work, so I sanded it down. It now works perfectly, and one other thing I needed to do was update the buttons, because this came with the red buttons, the red tactile buttons, but I decided I needed the yellow ones, because the red ones didn't work. The buttons, the little plungers that are underneath the clamp card here, they didn't reach the red buttons, so either I had to raise the red buttons, which I tried to do, and it was really annoying to try and make that happen, or I have these extra red buttons in my box of buttons here, or yellow buttons I mean, and they are taller, so the profile of them is a bit taller, and it actually worked out perfectly, so now the lightsaber works really, really well. So let me go over the specs of this. It's using a Proffie 2.2. You can see it right here. You can access the SD card underneath the board here. You can just have the battery out and use your fingers to pull it up if you want, and then plug it in the board. And as you already know, this is for Anthony, and he is experienced with lightsabers, so I don't need to tell him, but I'm going to be telling the audience, anyone who's watching, never plug in your soundboard to the MicroUSB port to your computer with the battery in, because you can fry it. There's no safety mechanisms like CFX. CFX requires you to have the battery in and on when you plug it into the computer, but with Proffie, if you do that, it will fry it. So just don't do that. Just plug it in without any battery in. Now let's get right to it. You get it started by putting in the negative going towards the crystals and the positive going towards the speaker. I will note that I had to sand down these little corners here. I found that with these Goth3 Designs Eco Chamber chassis, the way they design the battery compartment, they've got these little ledge lip things to hold the battery in, which is really nice, but it tends to be really, really tight. So you can't put it in and you can't take it out. So I just sand it a tiny little bit in the corners here, and then it slides right in, and then you can take it out super easy. And to take it out, I found that the best way is just to put your thumb on the little opening here, press it, and then there you go. Comes out. I really apologize for my cat. I think she's in heat right now. We haven't gotten her spayed yet, so she's kind of freaking out at the moment. And it is my job to try and watch her so she doesn't do anything weird.
This whole operation was your idea.
You can turn the lightsaber on by flicking the the kill switch right here. And then I do have two fonts that he sent me. I think they were from K-Sith. We've got the Anakin font and then the Vader font all tied together in the same package. So this one's the Anakin. This one's the Vader one. And as you can see, the crystals change color. There's two cool crystals in there. They were using a really tiny NeoPixel that I hadn't had the chance to use yet. I actually do have some in my accent parts box here. They're somewhere here, but they're really, really tiny. So it was my first time being able to use those. Now the weird thing about those is I couldn't make them chained together. I had to basically have them both act as a single pixel. So, because there's no data in and data out on the pixel accents, there's only a data in. So it's one positive, one negative, and one data, when typically on an accent pixel you've got a positive, negative, a data in, and a data out, so that you can link them all together in sequence with each other. But since these pixels don't have that, I linked them all together into one crystal, so you're not going to be able to address both of them independently, but you can change them both together. Now let me just cycle through. Jeez, this is really loud.
Tell me, is this training? My training? No. Always training. The universe is.
This is really, really loud. So, I may actually go into the fonts right now and change it so that I don't deafen things. Because I don't remember the proper button combinations to lower it, you know, like this. So I might just go in and change it now. Alright, I'm back. I've lowered the volume. For some reason these were at the max volume. I didn't even pay attention to that. But I lowered it to 1750 instead of 2500, so it should be a lot nicer.
This whole operation was your idea.
Yeah, much nicer. So as you can see, we've got the power button at the bottom, auxiliary at the top. You cycle through it like normal. These are all the sound fonts that I have set up on the config file. The config file I do have on the SD card of both your lightsabers here, so you can find the config in there.
Tell me, is this training? My training? No. Always
there's
training.
Also some,
the universe is.
There's also some extra fonts on the SD card that I didn't set up. They came with one of the soundboards here. So you have them there for if you want to set them up. Okay, we're back to the beginning. Now, as you know, when you put it in the lightsaber, you got to put it in a certain way. Oops. Guess it triggered the motion sensitivity there. This flat side right next to the buttons. So if you look at the buttons here, you've got a flat section right along there. That's what you want to line up with the clamp card. You just line it up like that, put it in, and then you turn it at almost a 45-degree angle, maybe 90-degree angle. You want to line up pretty much this guy right here, the end of the speaker or the speaker pad. You want that almost lined up with the clamp card, and you'll know it works when you press the buttons and it feels like normal. So we will just put all this together, and I'll show you the lightsaber with the blade in it. It takes a 7/8 inch blade. Just plop it in there, tighten it. It's, you know, a normal Proffie saber.
Darth Vader.
Here are the two fonts that you wanted me to add.
Cal Kestis. Tell me, is this training? My training? No. Always training. The universe is. I'm the one you're after. Bring your army. I'm ready.
These are a couple of the fonts
Whatever happens,
that were on that SD card. And now these are my standard ones. The Kyberphonic fonts, Kyber Workshop, I believe.
Purple.
this a little bit.
Yellow. White. Blue.
This one was also on one of the SD cards. I think they called it Emperor. A little bit of a fire effect here.
Smooth Jedi.
I think this one's a Death Star beam.
Smooth fuzz.
Rainbow, if you can tell.
Smooth gray. Teensy.
Battery level.
Battery level, you can see it all the way at the top there. And now we're back to the beginning. Now that about concludes it for this lightsaber, so let me move on to the OWK TPM. That one's pretty cool. I haven't worked on a chassis like that one before. Since we only have one battery here, I'm going to be swapping it out from here. To take it out, you just turn it and then pull it out. Flip it off, take the battery out, and then I will put the chassis into the lightsaber for shipping and storage. Right around there. There we go, put this off to the side for now. Okay, had to deal with the cat a little bit, but now we're going to go right back into it with the OWK TPM. So, here it is. Let's get into the chassis. Let's have a look here. This is what I believe to be made by Shadowfoil Props. It's a nylon chassis, so it's really nice, and you've got a lot of cool details. If we take a close look here, you can see the tubes and the mesh. Really cool geometry going on here. If I can get the camera to focus on it. There we go. And then as you can see, it comes with buttons that have lights on them. So I activated these lights here. I set it up so that you can have it independent from both the crystal and the blade, and then the crystal is also independent from the blade and the button. So you technically have 3 blades going on here. The main blade, the button, and the NeoPixel for the crystal. This is so that you can adjust them however you want. You can set up the crystal to do whatever you want, and you can have the button do whatever you want. At the moment, I have the button and the crystal mirroring each other, but you can change that in the config. The config, of course, is going to be in your SD card. Don't remember if I mentioned it, but it's also going to be in your Anakin Lightsaber. Now let's get right into it. The cool thing about this chassis is you actually have a removable crystal. You can just slide it in, slide it out. It's very cool, especially once it's on. Now, to put the battery in, the negative goes towards the proffieboard and the speaker. The positive goes towards the NeoPixel connector and the buttons. Just plop it in, and then the kill switch is on the back here. Nice and hidden. And there you go. We've got the button and the NeoPixel crystal mirroring each other. Remove the crystal. It's very, very cool. And then, of course, it just acts like a normal Proffie. It's got gesture controls. And since this, I believe, was the package from Corbanth, the electronics and kit package, it does have the Shadowfoil Props NeoPixel connector, which has a lot of LEDs spewed about right in there. So, let me just cycle through so you can see the crystal in a few different colors. I believe the auxiliary is the one on the right.
Green. Purple. Red. Yellow.
This is using all the same sound fonts as the other one. It also has all the extra fonts on the SD card that I didn't set up in the config. You can set those up however you want in the future. But it's got all the same sound fonts set up that I have on that one. It's just in a slightly different order. So the Anakin one shows up in the middle rather than at the beginning.
Darth Vader.
So I'll just get back to the beginning here. And now, I'm going to go over the hilt itself, because there's a few things I want to talk to you about that you'll want to keep in mind. The first thing is the blade plug. This This is a little bit tight near the bottom towards where these little windows are. And as you can see, I put the diffusion plastic circle cylinder things in there. It looks really nice. I'll show you when everything is all set up. But to remove the blade plug, since it is a little bit tight at the bottom, what I like to do is unscrew the emitter part to pull it out, and then screw the emitter back on. You don't have to do that with anything except this blade plug, because there's really nothing to grab onto in order to pull it out. I did sand it a bit so that it does slide a lot easier than it used to, so it is much better in that way. So that's the first thing I want you to note. The second thing has to do with the metal underneath the grip here. So, as you may or may not have known, there were a bunch of scratches at the top left corner. I don't have the ability or knowledge to get rid of those. I don't know how to get rid of the deep scratches and make them shiny and match all of this without ruining it. So, instead what I did was I took it out, since you can remove it. I'll show you. I took it out and flipped it basically upside down. So that has the benefit of hiding the scratch section. Hold on, let me unscrew the cover tech here so we can slide it out. Has the benefit of hiding the scratch section, as you can see right there. Got some deep scratches going on. It doesn't look very good underneath the grips. So I flipped it 180 degrees and you put it in that way and you don't see them. But that does have the downside of making it so the fat part is at the top and not the bottom. What that does is normally you put it in here and the cover tech is able to hold it in place, but since I've flipped it around so you don't see it, it isn't able to do that. So the best way to keep it in is to just have this bottom part screwed in, or if it bothers you, you can glue it in. Just add a little bit of glue right along here, just a little strip of glue or something, and then you can slide it in and it'll hold itself in place. Or you just, from what I've experimented with, it doesn't seem to move around at all, so you can just slide it in and then it won't cause any issues. You just stick your finger in there, move it, there you go, and then tighten this back up, screw on the bottom. Now I did notice that when you put in the chassis without this black bottom piece, it's the incorrect order to do things. One, because you can't put this on anymore because of the speaker. But two, if you do put this in, the little ledge here with the metal section, that gets caught on the kill switch lip or on any of these other little lips. So that just will show you not to put it in like that. So whenever you put in the chassis, you're always going to want to have this little collar piece. You screw that all the way in. Make sure that the metal is in line so you don't see any empty spaces along the sides. And then you just put in the chassis. Now the last thing I want to note is I did have some issues with the auxiliary button being unable to press the button occasionally. Like if you put the blade all the way in, like push it down, it just does something where the button can no longer be pressed. What I discovered was that it's actually because the little hemi, the purple hemi, it doesn't sit flush against the metal rim at the bottom. Don't know if you'll be able to see this, but this part here, the part that, whoops, sorry, hit the camera, that you press, the metal rim right there is not in line with the purple hemi at the bottom. There's actually a little bit of a divot. So right in the middle of the button, it's not able to press as deeply as the outside. So what I did was I 3D printed a clear circle that fits right in there, and I glued it in. Excuse me. And I glued it in. So now it presses equally with the metal rim. So now we don't have any more problems with the button not being able, or with this button not being able to press the button on the chassis. So I'll just screw this back in. There we go. Now to put this in, you just, I believe I showed you the removing crystal and putting it back in. It's really, really cool. If you didn't see it before, it's really neat. You just align the middle with the middle here, or align the buttons with the buttons. Put on the middle with the middle, or the buttons with the buttons. Just slide it in, push it all the way in, put on the pommel, then you screw it in. You don't want to push super hard because you could push the thing out of alignment, but I don't think that really matters too much because it'll hit the button no matter what. So you push it in, make sure that
Green. Purple.
the auxiliary is able to
Red.
press it, and then you're all set to go. And as you can see, this is why I set up the buttons the way I did. This is so that you can have a little bit of a preview of the blade before you ignite it.
Yellow.
But since it is a purple Hemi, on some colors it doesn't show very well.
White.
Like this is white, and it shows as sort of a pink-purple look to it. That's just because, you know, it's a purple gem in there. But everything else comes out pretty well. And then you can set it up to do whatever you'd like in the config file, or you can have it mimic the crystal like I do right now. So I thought you'd like to have that little bit of flexibility there.
Cal Kestis, tell me, is this team seats?
And once again, it's got all the same
Battery level. Blue.
all the same fonts. So let's put a blade in this. As I mentioned before, you unscrew the 2 retention screws there, and then you can remove the blade plug by just unscrewing the emitter, pulling it out, screw the emitter back on, and then it takes a 1-inch blade. You can just put that in. You can push it in as much as you want. Just tightening the screws here. There we go. It ignites. And as you can see, the auxiliary presses perfectly fine. So I think that's all pretty cool. This works exactly the same as, you know, all the other Proffie sabers and as your other ones, so there's really no mystery here or complications. I'll cycle through the main colors here. And for the purple blade, I have it sort of a cooldown effect, just so you have a little bit of variety going on.
Red. Yellow.
And if you don't like that this is the power and that's the auxiliary, you can, of course, switch in the config file.
White.
Looks a little blue on camera, but it definitely is more white in person. And now we're on to the font that you sent me for the Anakin. Very, very cool. So that pretty much covers everything you need to know about this lightsaber and your Anakin lightsaber. So I'm just going to remove the blade here. There we go. And then show you how to take it all apart again. It's pretty much exactly the same as putting it together. So I just want to say thank you for trusting me with your lightsabers. This was a blast to make. I got to experiment with a couple new NeoPixel LEDs, and I got to make some Proffie sabers, which I haven't done in a while. And I gotta say, Proffie is a breath of fresh air compared to installing CFX lightsabers, because and especially just doing a straight crystal chamber with no fancy crazy things like I usually do. It makes everything a lot simpler, and it's such a nice change of pace. So thank you for that. And I got to experiment with this new chassis, which is super fun. Now I hope you like the lightsabers. If you've got any questions, feel free to let me know. As always, I'm going to have all the resources down in the description of the video. And then these will be sent out to you hopefully tomorrow or the next day. So I hope you like them. If you have any questions, just let me know. May the Force be with you.